Make sure that CCN clip ready. We need it for the second.
4.
Facts from the Clarendon correspondent coming through now.
3.
All the international stories in the folder. Good to
2.
Newsreaders all set.
Yeah, man, everything set, everything ready.
1.
From the grill to Morant Point, News Talk 93 FM has got it covered. Across the 7 seas to the 4 corners of the world, it's all captured on the 93 radar. 93.1, 93.3, 93.5, 93.7 and 93.9 on your FM dial. Real News at 5 starts now.
Good afternoon. Time for the 5 o'clock news roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM. I'm Errol Lee.
And I'm Andre Bernard.
Coming up in this newscast, Health Minister Fenton Ferguson says special unit to be set up to prevent recurrence of babies' deaths in hospitals.
Senate President Floyd Morris says he will not apologize to Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort for suspending her from the Senate.
Criminals recruiting children below age 12 to commit crimes because they can't be held legally responsible.
And retired senior police officer says cemetery in Tivoli Gardens, referred to as Heras Park, is reserved for respected gangsters.
And now the details. Health Minister Dr. Fenton Ferguson says a special unit is to be set up to prevent a recurrence of babies' deaths in hospitals. He lists the personnel who will be in charge of the unit as he addressed Parliament this afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, this unit will be headed by Dr. Michelle Ann Richards-Dawson, a neonatologist, and comprise Dr. Jacqueline Besesa-McKenzie, Dr. Karen Shaw, Dr. Simone Spence, with support from the Ministry's epidemiologist, Dr. Karen Webster, and the Chief Nursing Officer. As I said before, Mr. Speaker, it is internationally recognized that neonatal mortality is too high.
Dr. Ferguson added there will be an increase in the number of staff in neonatal care, even while giving a breakdown of the medical personnel.
Increase in the number of staff specially trained for neonatal care. 1,000 primary care workers will be trained, Mr. Speaker. 200 community health aides, 86 physicians and nurses. 20 nurses in neonatal care have already been deployed to the field as of July 2015. An additional 22 nurses are in training and will be dispatched to the hospitals in another 6 months.
The health minister also assures Jamaicans that more doctors will be in the hospitals soon.
In relation to doctors, fellowship awarded to 7 candidates in neonatology, maternal fetal medicine, and critical care at the University of the West Indies. An additional 14 candidates are to be trained in the next few years. 2-year grants awarded to 9 doctors of medicine candidates at the University Hospital of the West Indies in anesthesiology, obstetrics and gynecology, and pediatrics, and another 27 grants are to be awarded.
Health Minister Dr. Fenton Ferguson currently speaking in Parliament while updating the nation on the 18 babies who died at the University Hospital and the Cornwall Regional Hospital recently.
Meanwhile, the opposition Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, says the resignations of 2 senior managers of the University Hospital of the West Indies, UHWI, should force the Health Minister, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, and senior members of his team to step aside as well. The Chief Executive Officer of the UHWI, Dr. Cecil White, became the first casualty of the dead babies scandal, and according to a source, another resignation will take effect shortly. The opposition has maintained that the health minister should resign for what it says is his mismanagement of the portfolio. In the meantime, JLP General Secretary Dr. Horace Chang says the resignations show that people are taking responsibility for their roles in the scandal. In just under 4 months, 12 babies died at the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit from infections caused by the Klebsiella and Serratia bacteria. 6 other babies died at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James. Since the health minister reported that he learned of the outbreak only 2 Fridays ago, there has been increasing pressure for the Prime Minister to sack him, with Twitter users mounting a campaign under the hashtag #FireFenton.
Senate President Floyd Morris today said he will not be apologizing to opposition Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort because he acted in accordance with the standing orders when he suspended her from the Senate. At a press conference held at Gordon House today, the Senate President refuted claims by the opposition that he had sought to have the Marshal retrieve Malahoo Fort from the restroom to present him with the letter he had requested, which was reportedly sent by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council to the Jamaican government in 2010. In the letter, the JCPC had expressed interest in coming to Jamaica to hear cases. The media was then shown footage of the events that transpired in the Upper House on Friday, October 23, leading to the action taken by the President. The opposition had threatened not to participate in the debate on the 3 bills seeking to replace the Privy Council with the Caribbean Court of Justice as Jamaica's final court of appeal. The debate is expected to resume this Friday, and the Senate President released video footage which appeared to contradict claims by opposition Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort that she was in the restroom at the time he asked her to furnish a letter. At the press conference this morning, Morris instructed the Marshal of the House to show footage of a security camera. The video showed what appeared to be Malahoo Fort inside the lunchroom of Parliament. The Senate President said he had no other option but to suspend her for what he said was disrespecting the Senate and disobeying his instruction. Morris said her conduct amounted to contempt and warranted suspension. The Senate President says he has no reason to apologize to the opposition senator because he acted in accordance with the standing orders.
A senior policeman has stated that criminals are recruiting children below the age of 12 to commit crimes because they cannot be held legally responsible for their wrongdoings. Head of the St. Catherine North Division, Senior Superintendent SSP Marlon Nesbeth, made the disclosure this morning. SSP Nesbeth says the police are moving to address the issue. He says the police have been working with youth in the division to curb antisocial behaviors, and a behavioral camp held this summer helped to transform the 146 students who participated.
And we go back to that story from the Senate where, in light of the suspension of Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort, Government Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns says what transpires in the Senate leading up to her suspension was understandable.
Well, after the motion was carried, so the motion was carried in full, President, then I think I recall that the President, having stood up to adjourn, Senator Malahoo Fort entered the chamber. On entering the chamber, she conferred with Senator Tufton. I have no idea what was said. Given the special circumstances of our President and Senator Malahoo Fort, knowing that the President sent for her not just one, but on 2 occasions, she, having re-entered the chamber, ought rightly to call to the President's attention the fact that she has re-entered.
She says the fact that Senator Floyd Morris is visually challenged should have prompted Malahoo Fort to indicate in an effective manner that she was back inside the Senate, as is the usual case with all senators whenever they return to the chamber.
Now, as you'd appreciate, as again I would have to say that President Morris does not have the benefit of sight. So he could not have seen her. On several occasions, this is how we have always operated in the Senate. If someone wants to get the attention of the President, you simply alert the President by saying, Mr. President. Senator Malahoo Fort intended to, simply could have easily.
Government Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns speaking on Fresh Start this morning.
And the government is likely to request from the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London a copy of the letter which it wrote to the Jamaican government in April 2010, expressing its willingness to come to Jamaica to hear cases. The action will, however, be taken if opposition Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort does not submit a copy of the letter for which she has been suspended from the Senate for failing to produce after 2 requests from Senate President Floyd Morris. At a press briefing at Jamaica House yesterday, Justice Minister Mark Golding said the letter only came to his attention when a local newspaper published the story. On Wednesday at the same time, he argued that the Privy Council is not an itinerant court and has only sat in specific jurisdictions under ad hoc arrangements that came at great costs to those governments.
You're listening to news on News Talk 93 FM. It's 10.5 after 5. Police Superintendent Arthur Brown today testified at the Tivoli inquiry that the women who protested in favor of Christopher Dudas-Coke in May 2010 were not there of their own free will. Brown, who was in charge of the Western Kingston Division at the time, testified that the police received information that the women were forced out of their homes by gunmen who gave them white T-shirts to demonstrate along Spanish Town Road. The senior cop also testified that men were at the back of the crowd with guns. The demonstration occurred on May 2010, and the women chanted they were willing to die for Dudas while carrying placards with pro-Dudas slogans.
Retired Senior Superintendent of Police Delroy Hewitt has said that inner city communities would improve to a great extent if gangs are removed from them. The former top cop told the Tivoli inquiry that methods of removing the gangs would include providing jobs for young people and lifting the standard of education. Hewitt says if they had jobs, most of them would not be involved in gangs. Commission Chairman Sir David Simmons remarked that Tivoli Gardens has settled down since Coke's arrest, according to the evidence, but asked at what cost. He noted that the removal of gangs is a massive task in Jamaica. Hewitt testified that criminals control garrisons with a combination of fear, intimidation, money, and guns.
Meanwhile, a retired senior police officer revealed that there is a cemetery in Tivoli Gardens referred to as Heroes Park, which is reserved for the burial of respected gangsters. Retired Senior Superintendent Delroy Hewitt told the West Kingston Commission of Inquiry this morning he's certain that Mark Coke, otherwise known as Jati, as well as Jim Brown, the former reputed leader of the Shower Posse, are buried there. The testimony came as Hewitt, who served 2 stints as head of the West Kingston Police, provided a history of the Tivoli Gardens gang, the enormous influence it wielded, and the culture of silence among residents that it aided with its activities. He testified that drunk kingpin Christopher Dudas-Coke ruled the West Kingston community with an iron fist, aided by a culture of silence among residents. He said the penalty for breaching the principles laid down by the Don was death. Hewitt acknowledged that most of the residents in Tivoli are decent, law-abiding citizens, but asserted that they are trapped in a situation where they have to maintain the status quo.
Police attached to the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch have arrested and charged 3 men, including an elderly man, for various offenses under the Larceny and Forgery Acts. 65-year-old Vernon Miller of Water Lane in Clarendon has been charged with obtaining money by false pretense, while 39-year-old Andre Porman of Chantilly District in Westmoreland has been charged with obtaining money by false pretense and conspiracy to defraud. Meanwhile, 37-year-old Patrick Anthony Williams of Park Lane in Kingston 19 is charged with forgery and uttering forged documents. Reports are that Miller is charged with allegedly falsely acting as an agent in the sale of a house and accepting a $1.5 million down payment. Porman reportedly fraudulently accepted $4 million after placing an advertisement for a motor car. Williams was arrested and charged after he applied for and was issued with a taxpayer registration number in the name Patrick Sylvester Williams.
JLP caretaker for Southwest St. Elizabeth, Floyd Green, is expressing grave concern at the operations of the Rural Electrification Program, the REP, and its failure to provide electrical services to the communities of Southwest St. Elizabeth. Green says over the last 6 months, the plight of residents in communities in Southwest St. Elizabeth who are without electricity has been raised directly with the management of the REP, and assurances were given by the management that steps would be taken to bring electricity into these communities. However, he says to date, nothing has been done. The JLP candidate added that the plight of residents in the communities of Parklea and Ridge Pen, both of which had work started in 2011 through the REP and saw electricity poles erected in the areas, but to date still have no light. He says it is an absolute travesty that 4 years after poles were erected and money paid by residents to the REP, the communities are still without electricity. He says the REP seems to be totally callous to these residents and operates with no sense of urgency. He said this could not be allowed to continue, and Minister Philip Paulwell should intervene to see that electricity is brought to these residents.
In news from the region, the Dominican Republic will issue an international arrest warrant for 2 French pilots who slipped out of the country and returned home after being sentenced to 20 years for drug running. And Attorney General Francisco Dominguez Brito said the country is proceeding with a request for an international arrest warrant for the pilots involved after the pilots, who were free pending appeal but barred from leaving the country, turned up in France, insisting that they were seeking justice after being wrongly convicted.
That's your local and regional news. For international news, we join the BBC.
BBC News. The U.S. State Department spokesman says he expects that Iran will be invited to participate in multilateral talks in Syria later this week. But John Kirby said it was up to Iran's leaders whether they actually attend the talks that are due to take place in Vienna. The American Secretary of Defense has said the U.S.-led coalition fighting the Islamic State group will intensify its airstrikes in Syria and Iraq to include high-value targets. He said the coalition wouldn't hold back from performing ground operations, such as a raid last week. The UN General Assembly has voted overwhelmingly in favor of a resolution criticizing the U.S. embargo in Cuba. The non-binding resolution gained more support than ever before. Just the U.S. and Israel opposed it. The Dominican Republic says it will seek the extradition of 2 French pilots who fled the country after being convicted of drug trafficking. The pilots had been sentenced to 20 years in prison, but returned to France after being released on appeal. Russia has warned that the country's reserve fund will run out by the end of next year if energy prices remain at the current low level. The fund was built up from oil and gas revenues when prices were much higher. President Obama has welcomed a tentative deal with Republicans in Congress on a budget that would end the threat of any further government shutdowns for the rest of his term. If approved, the deal would enable the government to increase spending by $80 billion. Thousands of Afghans and Pakistanis are spending a second night without shelter after Monday's earthquake. There are warnings that some may die of exposure. Some relief is getting in, but the UN Children's Fund said harsh conditions were cutting off some communities. The flat in London where the musician Jimi Hendrix lived in the late 1960s is to be opened permanently to the public. It's undergone a $3.5 million restoration. BBC News.
Broadcast Jamaican and Newstalk 93 FM now gear the news in the Jamaican language.
Good evening. Me name Kadeen Marshall and this are the news in the Jamaican language. 26 years old Ode Newby will come from St. Catherine where policemen claims a shoot one policeman get to yesterday in a gun court. This after Everton Bird, the lawyer worked for Newby, being asked the policeman will get shot some question and him say on the film signature upon the statement where him give out the case. Bird asked the judge for throw out the case against Newby, but the lawyer were being worked for the government asked him more time for find the statement but still couldn't find it. The judge agreed for throw out the case because she said she can't take what the policeman say for be the truth. One time police superintendent Delvar Hewitt said this inner city community them would have do better if no gang never inna them. Him tell the Tivoli Guard the commission for inquiries that if them take out the gang them have to find work for the young people them and make sure that them have access to education. Hewitt say if most young people be in a work, them would involved in a no gang war. Him said the criminal them run the community them with fear, money and gun. Him said them find 10 gun in a Devon town, Chestnut Lane and Craigtown in a Tivoli in a the 2010 operation. Him said them find 13 dynamite and a smoke grenade and enough gunshot. The 15 years old schoolboy where them say kill him 17 years old Brownstown schoolmate this month after go move from St. Anne and find one new school go cause people are churning him over our guan. The boy been go before the Brownstown Children Court yesterday and him lawyer them get bail for him. But resident magistrate Paula and Archer Hall say as part-time bail condition him have to live in our next parish. This come after the lawyer them tell the court say people are make check against the youth life. He might go back to court on December 1st. Them said the boy stabbed Jamala Barnaby, Kaim Bain defend himself in a one fight on October 8th. Same time in a court, the boy hears them grandfather drop down and dead when him hear about what happened. This morning, Floyd Morris, who the president for the Senate, put out one video which shows some different former opposition Senator Marlene Malahoo Ford said she been in the bathroom when she been for show the Senate one letter. Then been have one press conference this morning when Morris tell the Marshal for the House of Parliament, Kevin Williams, for show the security video. The video show Malahoo Ford in a Parliament lunchroom. The Senate President say him been office that Malahoo Ford from Parliament cause she dis the Senate and she never do what him say. Morris say cause of what she do, him have the right for stop her from Parliament. According to the Senate President, him not have no reason for say sorry to the opposition senator cause everything what him do within the law. News and foreign. One doctor will work on people brain at the top man for the Republican Party in the presidential campaign. Him a Ben Carson and him licked Donald Trump out of the #1 spot. The New York Times CBS released the poll the night before the man them debate again. Marco Rubio, they in at the 3rd spot. 26% of the Republican primary voted them, so they would have voted for Carson. This make him have one 4% lead over Trump, who been a lead for the last 4 months. Me name Kadeen Marshall, and that are the news in the Jamaican language.
Broadcast Jamaican and New Start 93 FM just gave the news in the Jamaican language.
The 5 o'clock Sports Roundup is brought to you by Newstalk 93 FM, life-changing radio.
Good afternoon, I am Mikhail Drama Johns with your 5 o'clock Sports Roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM, and we begin with football. Hugh Menzies, head coach for the Jamaica Under-20 women, hopes he has the strongest possible football squad for the CONCACAF stage of World Cup qualifying. These are scheduled for Honduras come December 3 to 13. Jamaica, beaten finalists in the recently concluded Caribbean Football Union CFU tournament, have a youthful squad which has advanced to the CONCACAF round. They are accompanied by CFU champs Haiti and third-placed Trinidad and Tobago. The Reggae Girls, as well as several other squads at the CFU tournament, were unable to field some of their best players and were short of preparation due to school engagements in North America. And the semi-finalists for the Western Sports Business House five-a-side competition have been decided. The Division 1 qualifiers are Spanish Grain Stores, Scotia Group A, Scotiabank Group B, and UDC. Meanwhile, in Division 2, the final four are Restaurant of Jamaica, Connex Limited, Tasty, and Peak Bottling. Meanwhile, for knockout action, UDC will face BOJ tomorrow, while Fontana Pharmacy challenge Alcor Windows and Doors. Further afield, according to Pep Guardiola, he can't be bothered answering questions on whether or not he will be leaving Bayern Munich for the English Premier League EPL at the end of the season. His current contract is due to expire next summer, and he has been linked with Manchester City and Chelsea, as well as the England national team. Meanwhile, Liverpool say their Anfield Stadium was evacuated today as a precautionary measure after a security scare. Police confirmed a man went missing during a stadium tour today, and his whereabouts were still unaccounted for. Merseyside police were on the scene with sniffer dogs. The club could not guarantee that the man had left the ground, and therefore a search of the ground was necessary. Moving on to cricket, West Indies cricketer Lendl Simmons has been ordered by a court in Trinidad and Tobago to pay TT $150,000 to ex-lover Therese Ho. This follows a hearing regarding the leaking of sexually explicit photographs. The ruling was made by High Court Judge Frank Sipasad in what was dubbed a revenge porn case. According to Sipasad, Simmons' behavior demonstrated a flagrant disregard for the feelings, emotion, and dignity for the claimant. He deemed it rather unfortunate that a young and talented cricketer like Simmons behaved in such a manner. The youngster was found guilty of breaching confidentiality by leaking sexually explicit photographs of the accountant executive with whom he had an extramarital affair. Howard applied for and received an injunction in June of last year, preventing any further disclosure of material which emanated from her relationship with Simmons. Simmons had testified that it was Ho who first sent the photograph of her performing oral sex on him to his fiancée, now his wife, and that he only sent the explicit photograph to the father of her younger daughter after the latter asked for it. He told the court that he only sent the photographs to one person. And moving on to basketball, the NBA season, that being the new NBA season, opens this evening with 3 games, including a home game for reigning champions Golden State Warriors. They will be looking to clip the wings of the New Orleans Pelicans, who are now led by Alvin Gentry, who ended last season as assistant coach for the champs. The Warriors will receive their rings before tonight's game tips off, with Luke Walton at the helm as interim coach. Their head coach is taking rest after surgery. Also in action tonight will be last year's beaten finalist Cleveland Cavaliers, who traveled to Chicago to face the Bulls. Star boy LeBron James for the Cavs has confirmed he is ready, while Bulls, Derrick Rose is also ready, though the former MVP may have only one good eye. He continues to recover from a left orbital fracture. The last meeting between the two was when the Cavs bid the Bulls goodbye in their conference semis last year. And tonight's other game will have the Detroit Pistons pumping for a win at the nest of the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks earned a club record 60 wins last season, with 19 in a row December to January. And finally, in tennis, world number 4 Maria Sharapova held her nerve in a tense finish to beat top seed Simona Halep and close in on a last 4 place at the WTA finals. The Russian withstood a Halep fight back to win 6-4, 6-4 and move top of the red group in Singapore. US Open champion Flavia Pennetta earlier beat Agnieszka Radwanska 7-6, 6-4 to keep her hopes alive. Pennetta and Sharapova will meet in the final round of red group matches on Thursday, with Halep facing Radwanska. And that's it for the 5 o'clock sports roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM. I am Mikhail Drama Johns saying stay tuned for the business news and weather report.
The 5 o'clock sports roundup was brought to you by Newstalk 93 FM, life-changing sports radio.
At 5:28, time for business news. On the local stock exchange today, the index advanced by 2,648.39 to close at 129,029. The junior market index declined by 19.83 to close at 1,296. Market activity resulted from trading in 40 stocks, of which 27 advanced, 8 declined, and 5 traded firm. Market volume amounted to 6.8 million units, valued at over $47.3 million. Caribbean Cream was the volume leader. Stocks advancing: AMG Packaging, Berger, Caribbean Cement, Caribbean Cream, Caribbean Producers, Carreras, Siboney, Consolidated Bakeries, Grace, Broilers, JMMB 8.75, Producers Group, JMMB Group Limited, KLE Group, Kingston Wharves, Lime, Mayberry Investments, NCB, Pan Jam Investment, Paramount Trading, Proven Investments, Pulse Investments, Radio Jamaica, Sagicor Group, Sagicor Real Estate, Scotia Group, Scotia Investments. Stocks declining: Access Financial, Caribbean Flavors, Dolphin Cove, Gleaner, Lasco Financial, Lasco Manufacturing, Proven Investments, 8%. On the foreign exchange market, the U.S. dollar closed at $119.64, the pound sterling $183.50, the Canadian $91, and the euro $132. That's business news.
And now we take a look at the weather. There is a trough to the east of Jamaica, which will remain over the central Caribbean and intensify tomorrow, bringing increased clouds and showers to the central Caribbean basin. In the forecast for tonight, conditions will be mainly fair.
To end the news, the main points. Health Minister Fenton Ferguson says special unit to be set up to prevent recurrence of babies' deaths in hospitals.
Senate President Floyd Morris says he will not apologize to Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort for suspending her from the Senate.
Criminals said to be recruiting children below age 12 to commit crimes.
And retired senior police officer says cemetery in Tivoli Gardens, referred to as Heroes Park, is reserved for respected gangsters.
That's your 5 o'clock news roundup here on News Talk 93 FM. I'm Errol Lee.
And I'm Andre Bernard.
The evening edition is next.
This is News Talk 93 FM, broadcasting from the University of the West Indies, Mona campus.
The time on News Talk 93 FM is 5:30.
Tune in to News Talk 93 FM weekdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for Prime Time's leading current affairs program, The Evening Edition. Join host Lambert Brown on Monday to Wednesday and Garfield Higgins on Thursdays. Garfield Higgins on Thursdays.